All right, how's everybody doing? Good? All right, good. Don't mind the mustache. It's Movember, so I'm trying to support Movember. I went to Walmart and some people were looking at me funny because I was with my daughter. Mustache doesn't bode well with a girl. So, anyways, I'm Jason Chaney, so I'm part of this class, and I'm just like you guys. You know, I'm working, going to school, trying to get through it all. It sucks, I know. But I've been fortunate to start a couple companies and try and run them. Try is the key word there. So currently I'm involved in a couple things. I've got linkula.com. It's a company that we do link building for marketing companies. So as a marketing company comes out and they say we want to do a campaign, we want to attach links to ad banners, we want to tweet links out, we want to put links on our Facebook page. We build those links for them. We dynamically create all the code behind it so that as people click on them, they know how many people click on that, and then they know where that person goes after. So they can kind of profile their customers and their target customers. So it's very focused on web analytic and marketing. I'm also the co-founder of a company called MobiCuts. It's supposed to launch in January, so we're getting really close. And it's a mobile salon for companies. So what a company like Ancestry, Vivint, these guys are all probably going to be participating in it, but basically a salon, a trailer will show up on site, and their employees can go out and get their hair cut in this mobile salon. So it's going to be really cool. It's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. We're not doing female haircuts, so a lot of people are saying we're sexist, but we're not. We just are trying to keep it time-consuming is of the essence. So that's what we're trying to do. So that starts in January. So going through those two companies, and then I also work at Domo. So I work at Domo with Josh James. Josh James, brilliant guy, for those of you who have been able to listen to him and hear him. And so being able to interact with him on a personal level is huge for me, especially as I listen and learn from him, because that guy is so smart, so brilliant. So what I want to do is I want to talk about kind of my experiences I've had. I want to more or less talk about an experience, a company I started when I was 16, and that it kind of boomed, and then we got rid of it. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what I learned that has helped me with Linkula and has helped me with MobiCuts. So I want to really focus on that. When I was 16, I was working at Dutch Oven Buffet. I don't know if anybody remember that. It was in Lehigh. It was a restaurant. Terrible, absolutely terrible. I hated my life. So I'd get home and I smelled like food. And I asked my dad, I was like, can I quit? And I was 16, and he's like, no. He's like, you can't quit. You got to have a job. You got to pay for your gas, pay for your dates and whatnot. And I was like, all right, gonna have to tough through it. So I'm sitting there talking to my buddies, and they're like, well, what if we start our own business? And I'm like, okay, don't know how to do that, never done that. We're 16, nobody's even gonna take us seriously. So I get home and I talk to my dad, and I'm like, hey, so what if I start my own business? And I'm thinking landscape. We're going into winter. I'm like, landscape, so I don't have to work for the next 4 months. I can just chill. And he's like, yeah, you can start your own business, but it's gotta be a legit business. So I get with my friends, and we decided we wanna start a DJ company. And there were a lot of DJ companies, but we were like, yeah, we could probably do that. So we decided to start a DJ company, and we had a lot of expenses up front as far as equipment that we needed to raise some money for. So I went to my dad, and I was like, hey, do you want to give us $1,500? He's like, no. He's like, why? I'm like, well, we need equipment if we're going to DJ. And he's like, so? And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? He's like, well, put together a plan and show me that you're serious. And I was like, okay. So we put together a plan. We have it all planned out. He looks at it. He's like, no, do this, change that. And I'm like, whatever. So he's my dad. So I would totally act different if it wasn't my dad. But anyways, he finally helped us out. He's like, okay, you guys can take some money and go buy some stuff. So we went, bought our mixer board, bought speakers, got our lights, everything. We felt like we were so cool. And so we go in, I roll into the high school, and I go up to the principal. And I was like, hey, so when's the next dance? And he's like, oh, it's in a month. And I was like, who's doing it? And he's like, sports marketing. I'm like, okay. So I go to the sports marketing teacher, and I'm like, hey, we're going to DJ that dance for you, all right? And then she's like, no, we already got it contracted out. And I'm like, well, how much are they charging you? She's like, $400. And I'm like, we'll do it for 100. Okay, first lesson learned, do not give anything away. So negotiate is huge. So I learned that very quick. So we gave that away. And of course, she was like, okay, that makes more money for us. So she let us do it, and we gave it away. We actually lost a lot of money on that, as you can imagine. And so I learned that, okay, I can't give stuff away. Even though we're young, we don't have experience, don't give it away. And you'll see that, and that's what I've been told over and over. You start a new product, you have a new product, and you're gonna hear these guys as they come up with their idea, you wanna give it away because you wanna get your name out there. Don't do it. You gotta make money. You have to cover your cost. And nobody can expect you to take a loss on money. Other businesses, they're in business because they're making sure they're profitable. And they can't expect you to not be profitable. So make sure you know that going in and make sure you're like, okay, I've got to be profitable on this. You're going to want to give it away, I promise. So that was a huge lesson for me. So we're going and we're doing these dances. We're making, after that, we started making about $300-400 a dance. We started doing a bunch of the LDS stake dances and stuff. Anyways, we kind of monopolized northern Utah County, and we were pretty happy. And we got called to an event up in Salt Lake. We get there, it was a big singles event. So here we are, a bunch of 16-year-old kids. There's a bunch of single people, and they're like, what, are you serious? And we're like, hey, we're gonna do an awesome job. It's gonna be the funnest dance ever. And it was, and they loved it. So I go over to collect our money at the end, and I'm looking in the cash box, and there's thousands in there. And they were charging, I think they charged like $8-10 a head. And I'm looking at that, and I'm like, how much am I getting? And they're like, oh, 400. And I'm like, how much do you guys make on these events? And they're like, oh, we probably pulled in about 8,000 tonight. I'm like, what? Are you serious? And I was like, you guys didn't even do anything. I did everything. We were DJing the dance. And they're like, sorry. And I'm like, whatever. So I go to my friends and I'm like, why can't we do that? Why can't we put together our own event? And they're like, well, we don't know how. I'm like, what's there to know? They're like, well, we got to market it. We got to rent a venue. We don't know how to do that. So I'm like, well, let's do it. So don't be scared to try new things. That was scary for us because as we found out, we had to front a lot of costs. We had to pay for the venue up front. We had to because we were so young. And we actually went through 3 or 4 venues because people are like, no, we're not taking you guys serious. Because keep in mind, I'm 16. We're like, mustache, didn't have it. Couldn't grow facial hair. And so we're trying to get these people interested in us and trying to let us rent their place out. And they're like, no. So finally, we get the Legacy Center, and they're like, okay, you can do it. And so we're like, okay, we've got a venue. And they're like, you also need a business license and insurance. And I'm like, what? No way. So we had to go through all the hoops. And you'll hear this. Every time when you start a new company, there's a lot of new hoops. But knowing the hoops up front, so that's why I'm talking about this past experience, because I was able to take that experience into the companies I work with now, and I'm able to apply it and say, okay, we're gonna need insurance, we're gonna need a business license, we're gonna need this and that, and that's all from what I've learned. And so as we went and got our insurance, we couldn't get insurance, so I had to have my dad get it for us because we were under 18, and so he got it for us. We created a company, we were called Mach 1, and we were really excited. So we get ready for this event, and we don't really know what we're doing. And so we figure out, okay, who are we targeting? What's the target market here? Who are we going after? And so they just split the Lehigh Junior High. So we were like, okay, perfect. All the friends are gonna wanna see each other. It's fantastic. So we put together this dance. It's a joined dance, and it was awesome. I think we pulled in just under $5,000 that night. 3 high school kids, and covered our cost. And so I actually sent, what we made, I sent it to the 3 venues that turned us down, and I was like, hey, we're never using you guys again. And we started doing that. The Legacy Center, we ended up going to several other venues throughout Utah County and up in Salt Lake County. But in high school, that worked out really well for us. We did about a dance a night, or a month, and we pulled in between $5,000 and $10,000 a dance, and we were able to split that across 3 of us, not evenly. I obviously took most of it, put it back into the company. But anyways, we did that, and then when we were, outgrown that, we handed that off, and we were able to sell that company off, and that was awesome. That was a huge experience for me, and I was fortunate enough to have it very young in my life. So the reason I tell you that is because there's a lot of things I learned, and some of them I didn't even point out, but like I mentioned, don't give anything away, especially when you're coming into this firsthand. You're gonna wanna give stuff away. Be very smart with your money, and be very smart with your partners. Some people say don't partner. The worst thing you'll do, and I heard this from one of my mentors, is like, the most expensive lunch you're ever gonna have is with your friend when you guys come up with a business idea and you say, okay, we're gonna go 50-50. That's the most expensive lunch you're ever gonna have. Because when you get further down the road and that company is worth $20 million and you sell out, you could have, if you're doing all the work, take 90% of the company. Don't give anybody 50. If he's going to be doing most of the work, yeah, give it 50-50. But if you're doing a lot of the work, which typically you are, don't give any of that away, because in the end, it's going to be super expensive for you. So make sure you do that. Make sure your partners are huge. I had one of my friends call me, and he was like, hey, I want to do this dance. And this is after like 4 years. I haven't even done dances. And I'm like, all right, I know a place you can rent all the stuff. And he's like, will you invest in it? And I'm like, sure. So I gave him, I think, $500 or something. Anyways, biggest faux pas ever. It was a terrible dance. Nobody turned out. That was the best $500 of my life. So this is before I started Linkula and before Moby Cuts. But I learned very quickly that having a bad partner equals a loss of money and equals a company that will go under. So make sure you're very smart with your partners. That seriously, to me, that was the best $500 I ever spent. It really was, because it was able to teach me going forward. So know that. There's so many lessons, there's so many things to learn. Make mistakes as fast as you can. It's something I hear Josh say over and over. He says, you make those mistakes faster than your competitors. Seriously, go out there. You make those mistakes quicker than them. That means they're not making them. That means you're making them, you're learning, you're moving way faster than they are. It's huge. And that's what we do. We have an idea, we do it. Sometimes we lose money, sometimes we don't. Make sure it's not a stupid decision. Don't go out and just throw, several $100,000 at something that you're hoping will work. Make sure you do research, but don't be scared to make mistakes. That's the thing. Be happy. When you make a mistake, it's almost kind of like, okay, that sucked, but we learned we're never going to do that again, and you move on. Competitors are probably going to hit the same mistake. Hopefully they hit it a lot further after you. So that's really it. I think that's about my 10 minutes, but anyways, yeah. Any questions? Do you want to do questions? Or okay, cool.
My name's Tyler Johnson. I guess we'll just get some hands warm really quick. Who owns a business in here? Any entrepreneurs? Higher, please. Okay, sweet. Okay, probably everyone will put your hands up. I'm going to talk about a transaction. I wanted to just give you a couple ways that you could earn money more quickly and efficiently, and more importantly, in volume. So who here has ever had a transaction or a deal like $100? I have. I'm sure all of you, right? Okay. How about $1,000? Okay. How about $10,000? Nice. $50,000? Nice. $100,000, anyone? $100,000. Okay, good. What I wanted to talk about today is something that I've figured out. What's the difference between $100,000 and a $100 deal? Anyone? Yeah.
Same amount of work, different platform.
Okay. Kind of. This is what I think, because I've experienced a lot of it. First of all, the difference is you make way more money. Second of all, it's less work to do a larger transaction. In my business, we do a lot of large transactions, and a transaction that maybe makes us a $5,000, $10,000 profit is not worth it. You're going to find that the lower 20% of the customers, or the customers that provide you with the least amount of volume on the 20% side, are going to be about 80% of your headache. And I've really found this to be true. So don't fight with your smaller customers, just drop them. It's not worth the headache, it's not worth your time, because you can make more money elsewhere. Okay, so my company, we started it in 2008. Does anyone know what a debt buyer is? Has anyone heard that term? What is it? I've seen it.
It's basically someone that buys off other people's debts and then collects on the interest or
Exactly. So,
themselves.
exactly. So I've got 28 collection agencies that work for me, and I'm a debt buyer. That's what I do. So the easiest way for me to explain it is when you go to Best Buy and buy a laptop computer, It costs $500. That loan is made through HSBC. It's a bank. So when you don't pay that loan back to the HSBC through Best Buy, it goes through a collection process of 90 days, and then they sell that loan to me. So I end up buying that loan. And so last year we purchased $2.5 billion worth of those types of loans. So which equated into 2011, our revenue is $35 million. And this year our revenue will be just over $50 million. So it's been a fun little ride for us. It's been very stressful, but it's been a good little business for us. So we built this business on integrity. My partner and I, we are a handshake guys in the contract world. Doesn't mean we don't use contracts. Every transaction we have has a contract. But if there's any disagreement between either us or a salesperson and a client or anything like that, we always let it go the other way, because if it gets tied up in court, it costs money, settlements cost money, lawyers cost money. It's actually easier to give the customer what they want. If they feel like they were slighted $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, it's easier for us to give it and keep that relationship going and make money in the long run. The most recent one was a $90,000 loss on my side. And I gave it up just so I could preserve the relationship, and now it's turning into a huge transaction for us. It'll make a lot of money. So integrity is just a really, really big part of our business. We just decided that we're going to pay people what they're worth. We're going to be fair with our clients, and we're really going to try and build our business with that as a core value. So let's see here. The other thing is, when you make money, keep some for yourself. It's best just not spend everything. I found this out when I was a little bit younger. Spending all your money is kind of a bad thing. It's better just to hang on to it and keep it and make a little bit more money with it. So is that kind of all, John? Is that, yeah, so that's like the introduction to my company. It's a very complex working mechanism. There's a lot of details that go into it. Between my partner and I, we have like 14 years experience in doing this. No, sorry, 14. 22 years experience between the two of us. So it's taken a lot of bumps and bruises in the beginning, but we've been able to make it work. So I am putting out a new company. I've been working on it for about 3 years, and you guys hopefully will see it around. But just remember the word cake, and you will hopefully be able to get some stuff from us. So it'll launch after the first of the year, but just keep that in your mind, the word cake. So anyways, thank you guys.
Tyler, would you tell them the name of your company that you just described?
The United Debt Holdings is the name of our company, and it was founded in 2008. So.
Sorry, excuse me. Well, that's exciting. Congrats, both of you guys. 50 million, that's pretty huge. We're definitely not at that point yet, but that's cool. My name's Caleb Light. I don't know if very many of you know me or not. That's all right. I'm with a company called Power Practical. We are building personal power devices. And any idea what that means? Well, you know. Anyone? Castle knows. So what we're focusing on is kind of this idea that we're sort of infatuated with our handheld electronic devices. How many of you have had your cell phone die when you were going to make a phone call or need to send a text message, and your stomach gets in a huge knot and you're like, oh my gosh, my phone's dead. What am I going to do, right? Anyone? It's happened to me on a couple of occasions. So kind of off of that, we decided to form a company called Power Practical, and our first product is called the Power Pot. I don't know if any of you guys heard about it. I'm sure a few of you have. But kind of some interesting things around the Power Pot. I'll fire it up in just a second. But we decided to kind of go the non-traditional route of acquiring funding to launch our company. And so we decided to do something similar to PhoneSoap of crowdfunding on Kickstarter. Any of you guys browse Kickstarter? Checked it out? Pretty cool website. If you have a physical product, something that's tangible, I would totally recommend checking it out to launch your company, because what happens is you put your project on Kickstarter, and if people like what you're doing, then they give you money, and then you fulfill at some later date. And so we went live in April, and in 30 days we raised $126,000 on Kickstarter, which equated to about 850 power pots. And so the last like 3 months, our team has been in Salt Lake City in what is deemed now as the factory. And we've been building power pots for like the last 3 months, and we're totally caught up, totally fulfilled on all our back orders, and now we have excess inventory. I'm talking to retailers, and we're trying a lot of online tests to sell more power pots, which has been cool. And we love crowdfunding so much that we're actually going to launch another crowdfunding campaign in 2 weeks for our second product, which I'm pretty stoked. It's going to be called the Solar Stash. And so it's sort of in the same vein as the power pot, low watt, personal power device, focusing primarily on solar with some added technology that helps users understand and have some more realistic expectations around what the device does. So some little things about me. I've been an entrepreneur since like 2008 when my brother and I got this like crazy idea of advertising on paper coffee cups. Because we both lived in Alaska and we were like operating heavy equipment, building roads and whatnot, and there's like coffee shops everywhere. And there were all of them were using plain white cups. And we're like, why not throw an advertisement on it and sell the cup to someone else and then give the cup to free for the coffee shop? So we thought that was cool. We worked on it for a couple of years. We sold some cool accounts. And then as entrepreneurs, if it's not going as well as you'd like, you tend to lose focus and other opportunities arise. So the power pot arose for me, and I decided to go for that. And my brother decided to go chase big data and politics, and just got back from a 48-state tour of the United States with his new startup. So some kind of, I guess, food for thought is you guys are just as capable as anyone else at doing whatever you love to do. Doesn't matter if you're 16, doesn't matter if you're 45, you're just as capable. Your knowledge base may not be as developed as someone that has more experience in that industry, but that doesn't mean that you're not capable of being successful there. Just like Jason said, make mistakes. It's okay. If you make mistakes on other people's dollars, it's generally better than making mistakes on your own dollars, but at the end of the day, you're learning, right? So some other things, you guys are all in school right now, and I don't know if you realize the resources and opportunities you have being a student. There's like business plan competitions. Between my brother and I, we've probably put 20 grand of cash in our pocket and 20 to 40 grand of services from business plan competitions over the last couple of years. He went to freaking Washington, D.C. and took second place out of 22,000 entrants. He beat out teams from Yale and Harvard and all those places because he took advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you. I personally know that there's a business plan competition coming up shortly where they're giving away like $2,000 or $3,000 of cash. Right there. How many of you guys can write a 2-page paper and someone will give you $2,000 for writing it? Few? All of you have that opportunity. I just want you to know. And then in the spring, there's a $40,000 grand prize, which I've tried to get for a couple years and finished in the top 10 twice. So I was unsuccessful, but I'm here to help whoever wants to go there win that because I want UVU to take it. And I'll put in my 2 cents. I got a little bit of experience winning pitches and business plan competitions. So if that's something that's interesting to you, I'll write my email address on the board and come chat with me. And I will do whatever I can to help you win because I want UVU to take that. And I'd like to see that 40 grand go into a cool company. Last thing before I sit down. So going back to this idea of opportunities as you're a student, back in the summer of 2010, we finished in the top 10 of the Utah Entrepreneurship competition, which is the $40,000 grand prize for our business cup ad. And we got assigned a mentor, and he's like, you should go to this pitch competition through Funny Universe, where you pitch 40 different angel investors. So Josh and I were like, I think I was 25 and he was 23. We go to this competition and there's 10 companies and we're like the youngest by like 10 years. And we won that competition, which was really awesome. But I met this guy named Rob Webker and he invited me to participate in this program called The Foundry. And that was our first cohort. And what The Foundry is a 3-month program where entrepreneurs similar to me similar to Jason, similar to Ryan? Tyler, where you get together once a week and you talk about each other's problems and like what's inhibiting progress. And it's this like whole sweet idea of peer-to-peer mentoring, because after you leave school and you have problems in the real world, the first people you're going to go to are your peers. And so we believe in the Foundry, or what's going to be called the UVU Startup Lab, that the sooner you start those relationships and understand that the way you're going to get through the day-to-day ditch building is through leveraging your peer networks. It's really important. And then there's some other cool things that that the UVU Startup Lab or the Foundry helps. They help manage time and help you understand like deliverables. And this whole idea of you're going into business for a specific reason, what's the quickest and simplest way of knowing whether you're right or wrong? And that's through scientific testing. You know, it's nothing too revolutionary, right? But there's some 2 cents about me and the small experiences I've had thus far. So, oh, you want me to run the PowerPoint really quick?
Yeah.
Anyone? Who has a phone that's about to die? Anyone? Castle. It's not an iPhone 5, is it? I don't have that connector.
No, it's just 4.
Okay. You guys want to see an iPhone charger or an LED light? iPhone? All right. So the PowerPot's really easy. You take water, and if you like to support social causes, you can use people water. You just add it to the pot like you normally would. And then, cool, you want to pull out that tip and get it ready. Oh, you're getting text messages. Don't tell Shauna. So I just have a little backpacking stove.
Oh, wow.
Oh man, Castle.
This is cool.
Making a mess. Okay, so you have the power pot, and then we have this little thing we call the regulator cord. From the black box to where it connects, this is all self-extinguishing silicone with fiberglass, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't melt. Well, if you throw it in a bonfire, it will melt, but it shouldn't melt if you're responsible. So I'm just going to plug this cord into the power pot and fire up the stove. I'm an Eagle Scout, so it should be okay. So we'll crank up the heat a little bit, and we'll just set the power pot on there. And then what's cool is this little green light will light up here in just a couple seconds, and that means you have power, and you can start charging your device. So, oh, it's starting to light up. Anyone? How much time? 10, 15 seconds? Okay, we'll see if it's got enough power to charge this phone yet.
That's charging.
Charging. Woo! So that's the power pot. Pretty easy, and it does work over a campfire. So if any of you guys are having sweet bonfires this spring, feel free. It does run speakers. All right. Thanks,
Great.
Castle.
Let's give our speakers a hand. Castle gets a hand. Good job, Castle. So what questions do you have? You were at some pretty amazing businesses, right? I mean, those were some pretty high dollar amounts, pretty powerful names, pretty powerful technology. What questions do you have for them? This is your chance. Debbie. Where can you buy the PowerPod?
You can buy the PowerPot at thepowerpot.com. And I'm currently talking to a bunch of local outdoor retailers, and so hopefully before too long you'll be able to see it in a bunch of other places.
Let's see, we do need to have you put on the mic. Excuse me, because this is being recorded.
Where can you buy the PowerPot? Thepowerpot.com.
Okay. So, yeah.
Did you have any challenges with your crowdfunding through Kickstarter? Like, did you have any
Question, do we have any challenges with Kickstarter? Yes, we did. Because we are a very socially minded company, and so part of some of the pledge amounts allowed people to not donate, give money for power pots in developing nations, and we actually got about enough money to build 100 power pots. And so Kickstarter is very like anti-donation, anti-charity. I think it's more like legal stuff than necessarily maybe personal beliefs there, I hope. But we had to change some wording in our page to eliminate the word donate to give. question, what benefit what benefit is the power pot over solar? I think the first and foremost is it works at night. But I think it's not necessarily an and or in terms of what we like to call a personal power toolkit. We think it's kind of both for people that are really concerned about personal power, because you can harvest energy from the sun. Why not? And at night, when you can't harvest that energy, maybe a power pot makes more sense. And there's also places in the world that they don't get the same sort of sunlight. And so a thermoelectric device makes more sense in a country like Nepal than it would in maybe a country in Africa.
Other questions? Yeah.
This is for Tyler. Where did you get the funding to start buying all that?
Question about funding. I had made money when I was younger with real estate and selling stuff. So that's what I began with, and the real challenge started when we needed multiple millions of dollars to operate, and that we couldn't get it through your conventional banking systems. We had to go out to different funds in order to get that. So it was a lot of work and a huge headache. So my industry is not very friendly with the banks, that's for sure. We can lose money really quickly if you don't know what you're doing. But yeah, it all came from myself and my partner, essentially.
Can I add one thing to that real quick? Right now, our company is going through a round of funding, and for any entrepreneur out there that thinks this is like a glorious and awesome thing, change your attitude, because it totally sucks and it eats a lot of time.
Actually, I'll just say one more thing, just about funding. So, like, once you're able to make money and have a successful business, you've heard like all of the presenters here talk about investing in a team. When they know that someone's been successful and has created a company, even if it's been a small one, they like that a whole lot more. So a new company that I'm launching is actually going to be funded by a group of investors as well. So, and I think that's one of the main reasons.
This is for Tyler. How did you get into buying debt? Like, where?
How did I get into my business? I invested some money that I made into a collection agency, and it wasn't going very well, so I ended up getting my money back out of it and starting my own collection agency. And then I was also buying the debt. Usually a collection agency relies on another debt buyer or a client that has accounts. And I was buying my own accounts, so eventually that became more profitable, so I shut my collection agency down and outsourced it. So it's just a big morph.
Okay.
This is for Tyler as well, and I'm always interested, what amount of debt do you buy converts into bad debt that can't be collected?
Can you ask that again?
What, more of a percentage, what percentage of debt do you buy ends up being uncollectible?
Oh, sure. Okay. So this is where it gets very complicated in my business. Every dollar that I think about is a percentage anyway. So I'll buy a $100 note at 5%. And I know that I've got to collect 7% out of that to break even. And then I've got to collect 10% out of it to actually make money, or the return that I'm looking for. So when we talk about percentages, I usually try and collect about 3 times what I purchased it for. So if I bought it for 2, I want to collect 6 out of it, and then I turn around and sell it again at a lower rate to some other debt buyer that actually specializes in that type of debt. And it's a huge industry. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars run through this type of industry, and I'm a very small guy in a big old ocean. So.
I have a question for you. What kind of education did you get to jump into this? I mean, did you learn this from your partner, or did you study this?
I originally, no, I was talked into investing. I had money and a guy swindled me for it. So I invested some money, wasn't going good. It took legal action to get it back out. And then I thought it was a good idea, so I started it, talked with some people in the industry, and it just kind of grew from there. And then what happened was my partner started United Debt Holdings, and I was being a pain in his butt taking clients, and so we decided to merge. So I was what they called the disruptive force, and it ended up being awesome. So I was just out pounding the streets like crazy. So as far as education goes, it took a lot of losing money to make some, that's for sure.
Other questions? This is a golden opportunity, Isaac.
I'd like to know about your guys' balance between school, startup, whether or not you work for somebody else while you've been running your startups, whatever else you've done in that way, how you balance it all.
I failed one of my classes last semester, so I need to retake it to graduate. That's sort of my balance of between startup and school.
Yeah, no, same with him. I failed classes. I don't shoot for an A. That's probably bad, but I just shoot to pass. So that's kind of my goal. As far as family and stuff, something that when I started, Josh brought me into his office and talked to me about balance, and he said, for those of you that know, he actually dropped out of school when he was starting Omniture. It was my PC or my computers at the time, but he said, don't drop out of school, and he says, make sure you balance your life. He says, that's the key thing. He said, make sure that you bring your rock star A game while you're working in whatever it is you do, and make sure you spend time with your family at night. He says, you might be getting back working at 1 a.m. when your family's asleep, but he says that there's nothing more important than, one of his mottos in the book I gave out is work hard and play hard. So work like a dog throughout the week, and then on the weekend, make sure you spend time with your family. Make sure you're doing homework and stuff like that. So balance is key and hard.
I came back to school. I was here when it was UVSC and just came back this last January because I had a year left to graduate. So I want to go get an MBA is kind of what I want to do, so I have to get A's. So I work really hard at school. I also work really hard at my work, and I sleep 5 hours, generally 5 hours a night and 10 on Saturday. So, and I don't go to sleep until probably 3 in the morning. So I'm waking up at around noon, 1 o'clock on Saturday. And my wife, she's really awesome about it. So she knows I work hard. So less sleep.
That's how you balance, is less sleep. Any other questions? Yeah.
Are there any classes that were specifically more helpful at UVU
Shauna's.
with your experience?
That's an automatic day right there.
Yeah, so the question, what classes helped? Yeah, I would agree.
Would you repeat that?
Yeah, I did. So the question is, what classes have been interesting to us and helped us? So this class is actually huge, just being able to listen to people who've been there, done that, because like we've talked about, having the experience is key. Like we talked about with, investments. When I went in for Linkula to get investment, the one thing the VC firms are looking at is, have you done it before? What's the market? And then what's the product? So having that, being able to listen to people who've been there, done that, and kind of so you guys are one step ahead, so there's less surprises is key.
I'd say business writing, whatever that class is. Writing is so important. Before I took it, my assistant wrote every email for me. Now I can write my own emails.
Sorry for dropping the mic. This may not be the best answer, but I'm just going to say it. The Foundry was what did the most help for me personally. I took accounting classes as a major, and so I didn't even take any entrepreneurship classes or business management classes, but just associating myself with like-minded entrepreneurs and then spending every week talking to them and tracking what I was working on ultimately was the most help for me personally in my own business.
Okay. Questions? Yeah.
Caleb, where did you start with manufacturing?
In a basement. Oh, question, where did we start with manufacturing? In a basement, and now we have a 1,300 square foot space in Salt Lake City where we have some machines and presses, and we've built and shipped over 1,000 power pots so far.
Caleb, you said that in school you studied accounting. Where did the mechanical side come in? Who was the brainchild of the mechanical?
Who is the brainchild of the power pot? Not me. I partnered with 2 material science engineers that are like rocket scientists, and they invented the power pot. And so on that point, I think it's really important to build a well-rounded team, especially in like the age we live in today, of where becoming specialized is, I think, even more important than it was in the past. Because on our team currently, we have one guy that's web everything. We have 2 material science engineers, and myself. We have a couple people building power pots that work in the factory, and we just hired a CEO to come run the company. That's like Tyler was mentioning, with raising funding and having someone that's been there and done that, that's something that's been really crucial in our funding conversations, and ultimately that's something that had to happen. So, which we're not complaining about because he brings tons of experience to the table.
Actually, I have a question for you all, and you'll have to repeat this, Jason, but you kind of kicked it off by talking about, you've got 2 companies going, Linkula, or is it L-I-N-G? I don't know, L-I-N-K?
Yeah, Linkula.
Linkula, and you're launching a new one. So tell me about focus. You've been asked about balance. Tell me about focus. You'll have to repeat it.
Yeah. So the question is when dealing with multiple companies or multiple startups, how do you focus? So that's something. If you guys were here last week, that was it. Mandolin talked about is kind of focus, and entrepreneurs always have ideas, and this is something that I have. Is I'm always thinking of new things. I'm like, oh, I could do that. That would be awesome. And I could do that. That would be awesome. And so it's very hard to focus in on one thing. And so something I do is I have some friends that are looking for something to do. And so I'll be like, hey, you should, this is an idea I had, and I was up all night thinking about it, because that's what happens. And you should, see what you can do with it. So being able to focus, I don't know, I look at the opportunity. I run it by peers and say, hey, which one of these do you think is the most, has the most potential? So there's a number of things, but running it by peers, market research will tell you where to focus, as well as you guys do research on something and find out if there's value there. So you can answer.
Same kind of thing. I'm the money behind this new company that we're starting, and it was my idea originally, but a friend of mine actually wanted to take off with it, so he didn't have a job, so I gave him one. And but just be aware, when you are looking for funding, you don't want to be the guy that's the entrepreneur of like everything. The investors really, really want to know that this is your life and your passion, and that's all you're going to be doing. So
I tried doing 2 startups, and it's super insanely hard. So I'd recommend only doing one. But that's my 2 cents.
Okay, time for one more question. Oh, come on, something you're dying to know. Yeah, okay.
Sorry to take so much time, but I've heard everything from, the first year's the hardest, first 2 years are the hardest, you're not gonna make a profit your first 2 years, first 5 years are the hardest. I don't know if you guys, have an opinion on that, I guess. What's the hardest,
hardest is obviously the beginning. I think they say like first year, 5 year, 10 years, something like that. And we're at about 5 years, and we just put our company out to market to sell. The problem is we have all of our money invested into our company, and so we just want to pull some money off and get less risk for it. But I think just the beginning, if you're willing to scrap and fight for every dollar, then you can just make it work. On the flip side of that, my wife has been through like the ups and downs with me. We've been like so broke where we don't, like, all of the food, like those nasty beans in the back corner of the pantry, get eaten. And then we've also had times when it's been amazing and we just travel the world. So you got to have a spouse or a partner there that's willing to ride that wave with you. But definitely, most businesses fail in the beginning, so there's a reason for that, because it sucks. It's hard.
We have just one more question. Is that it?
I think just to reiterate that, I think the hardest thing, at least for me, is like staying motivated and convincing myself that I'm not totally crazy. Because it is really hard to like work every day, and sometimes you don't get paid, sometimes you get paid, sometimes you're totally broke and sometimes you're not. And so I love it personally. So if you're willing to work really hard, it's, at least in my views, it's worth it.
Would you join me, please, in